In the link building community, talking and sharing ideas with each other is a great way to develop and iterate on each other's ideas. That's why I regularly talk with Sebastian and Eric from dofollow.io. Many of the best link building tactics and ideas that we've come up with at Authority Hacker have come out of discussions we've had with these guys. And I finally managed to pin them down, and we're going to have a super in-depth conversation about exactly how they do link building. We're going to cover outreach, PR, scaling HARO, even some juicy link building automation techniques in there as well. So if you do any kind of link building, then you will not want to miss this episode. Eric, Seb, welcome to the Authority Hacker podcast.
Yeah, happy to be here.
It's a pleasure.
Can you first tell our audience about the kind of quantity of link building you guys do? Because I know you do a lot, and I know you guys have built some particularly impressive links in the past. So can you give everyone a flavor of what you've done?
It's actually probably not as much as people would imagine. I mean, we are a boutique agency, so we probably build between 150 and 210 links per month. Over the span of maybe 12 to 16 clients, depending on the month. But what we focus on mostly is quality over quantity. So, it's actually not, I mean, there are like link brokers out there who build, 5,000 links a month. That's not who we are. It's a lot more boutique than that.
Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, yeah.
So what's the best link you've built recently? What type of sites are you landing links on?
I mean, we through HARO we get quite a bit of really good links through like different like nonprofit organizations and stuff like that, because we have some clients in like the health niche. We've gotten a client featured on Bloomberg.com recently. In the past, we've gotten clients featured on Forbes or Magento.com. Avo.com.
So proper tier one stuff.
Yeah, tier one links. Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, I'm really interested to get into exactly how you do that and how you kind of organize your agency to get those links for your clients. But for anyone who kind of doesn't know you or doesn't know what you guys do, like what makes you guys so special when it comes to link building? Why should people listen to the rest of this episode? Yeah.
So, well, first of all, we've just been through the ringer, like we've sent hundreds of thousands of emails. We've dealt with deliverability issues over the years. We've dealt with conversion issues over the years. We've done anything from manual to fully automated outreach back to manual again. But in terms of the agency who we are as an agency, there are no shortage of link brokers out there, and there are no shortage of sort of PR agencies out there. And I think there are very few people who marry the two together, So we have an SEO division, like an SEO link building division of the company, and we have sort of like the PR link division of the company, and we do a bit of everything. So I think that kind of separates us from the other people.
Yeah, and maybe to jump in here, I think it's not just that Eric is a bit of a wizard when it comes to link building, but we also managed, maybe for the agency people out there, we managed to build a high six-figure agency that is actually not a pain to run. I think that's also, given your experience and what you shared on your podcast earlier, is also something that makes us, I think, quite unique in the space. So we married two very interesting approaches that make something unique.
That is very interesting. I feel like you've done the impossible there. As someone who used to run a link building agency themselves, I find it hard to kind of get my head around like building it in such a way that it's fun to run. But I'm sure we'll get into that in this show.
Sure.
I just want to start though by diving into your kind of how you guys met, because you guys kind of met through Authority Hacker. Is that right?
Yeah. It's an Authority Hacker baby for sure, the agency. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think we started talking quite early when we were running our own sites. I mean, we were part of the community and building sites. We started talking. Also, Mark Jenner, who is a bit of a like a special person in the community. Everyone knows him. We were like, us three were talking quite a lot. And then we crashed your team event in Budapest. And that's how we actually met the first time, and that's how it all got started. So it's really an authority hacker story.
That's awesome. So, if anyone else is out there listening, just come along and crash our events in Budapest.
That's your road to success.
Start a successful business.
Yeah, my brother, he used to work for you guys, and he never travels. And I was already in Europe, and Sebastian and Mark already lived in Europe. And so like I just invited myself, and then I invited Sebastian, and then we invited Mark Jenner, and so we all just like crashed your guys' event in Budapest. And that's how Sebastian and I met for the first time.
Yeah, I seem to remember, I don't know if it was that night, but like one of our employees may or may not have been drinking with you guys and got very, very drunk, and was not in a very good way the next day, shall we say.
Yeah, what
I
happens in
remember
Budapest stays in Budapest,
well.
right? Yeah, it was a good day.
All right. So when it comes to working with clients and deciding which types of link building you want to do, a client comes to you and they say, hey, guys, we need some links. How do you decide what strategies you're gonna use with that client?
Well, really, in the discovery call, we listen to the client. We listen to what they're trying to do. People don't come to us looking for full boat SEO. They don't come to us looking to develop some sort of strategy for them. Usually, almost always, people come to us and they just want to. They have their own set SEO team. They have their own set content team. They are struggling with links, so they reach out to us and they try to just kind of join them with their existing content and SEO strategy. So that we let them kind of set the pages that we're going to be building links to, the strategy. Usually they want like a PR approach. They want us to be getting big links to the home page, to the root domain, and then they want us to build links to specific pages on the site. We like to make sure that we have enough to work with. So, we really like them to allow us to build links to any page on the site that we feel fit, because a link's a link. And, we find opportunities because our team, we're always doing competitor analysis, and we find opportunities, and we don't want to turn down a link just because it's not going to some commercial page or something like that. So we try to find a good synergy with our team, but also what the client's looking for.
Yeah. And maybe to add to that, I think we look more on relevancy than what type of link or what type of outreach we're going to do. It's not like, okay, for that client, we just do HARO unless that's a special request. But it's like, okay, what type of links are highly relevant to the target pages? Relevancy. And then we go from there and just find relevant opportunities across all outreach options we have. Right, so our focus is just make it a natural looking backlink profile instead of just guest posts, right? That's something we would never do because it's not really an organic backlink profile.
Yeah, and we have so many good teams. We have a full HARO team. We have a core link building team that all they do is competitor analysis. We have a small PR division, so we don't like to be pigeonholed into one strategy. We really like them to go into this with an open mind and say, okay, fire at all cylinders, just get us good links.
Something I remember from back in our agency days was it was a lot easier to build links to clients that had really good sites and really great content. How do you ensure they have that? And do you create the content yourself if they don't, or how do you manage it?
We are very picky with our clients. Like I said, we have, I think we have about 16 clients or so right now. We turn down probably 80 to 90% of people who come to us. Because it's either a niche that we don't feel completely comfortable with, or their site, they don't have a good content strategy. They don't have a lot of content on the site. So we turn down most people who come to us. And if we do take them on, we make sure that they have content that we think we can work with, that gives us a lot of opportunities to go for a lot of different prospects. And if we don't think we can have success with them, we're not going to waste their time or our time.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe a good lesson for all the agency guys out there that are listening. How to select clients is one of the major success factors, I believe, that attributed to our success, simply because there's synergy created by selecting the right clients and really making sure that you, first of all, can do something and really can make a change for them, but there's also how it impacts your internal processes, right? It's the same if you have multiple sites. It's probably better to have multiple sites in the same niche because the synergies created are a lot higher. Your team knows the space. You don't have to learn something new. You know link opportunities, right? So there's a lot of synergy created just at the first point of contact by choosing clients that are a good fit, so you can create and make the best impact for them.
How do you do that initially, though? Because when you're first starting, I mean, I remember when we started our agency, we would literally take anybody, and it's okay. You know, if you're a 6-figure agency, it's very easy to be a bit more picky. But surely that comes a little bit later, no?
Yeah. I think in the beginning we didn't think about that, but that also caused more pain, to be honest. And sometimes that's what you have to endure, right? The early days, you can't cherry pick. But if that's an option, if you can think about first, like your go-to-market strategy and like what niche you want to focus on, it's the saying, the riches are in the niches. If you can pre-select where you're going to be active and which clients you're going to work with, then that's already an advantage that you will have over others. And we see other agencies in very specific spaces where it's just about e-commerce, for instance. And all they do is working with Shopify owners. And that gives them an advantage because they already know a lot. So I think even without having a 6-figure agency, you can pick your battles. And if you pick your battles wisely, it will give you an initial advantage.
Yeah, but in the beginning, we did the same thing. We took on just kind of anybody who came to us, and we made some. I mean, we made some probably unfavorable choices when it came to clients. We were just trying to build a business. So we would come to anybody. We would give them a discount if that's what they wanted. You know, like we let them run the show, and then eventually we built enough momentum that we're able to charge a premium price, choose the clients on our terms, and that's really when we started to scale.
And how do you actually go about pricing a link building service these days? I remember when we were doing it, this was like 7-8 years ago now, maybe even more. We had some clients who would pay us a certain amount of money per month, and then they would just kind of like get our work for that. And then we tried to make like a productized service where we would sell, one link for $100 or however much it was. But then if it was above a certain threshold of DR or DA, it was more like, how do you guys approach that, being a boutique agency, as you call it?
Yeah, we changed our pricing multiple times, and that's also a learning, right? It's like we didn't start out at the right price point. I think in the beginning we were very clear that we didn't want to have a retainer model because we saw that as not fair to the client. They pay us a fixed fee and we do something, but they don't have a guarantee of the results in the end. And also I think there was a USP for us to switch the model, to take on the risks on our end and say, okay, you pay us after work has been delivered. Right? So that's already a pricing strategy that I think set us apart. But then the second step was, okay, we want to have a performance-based pricing, because just like having a set dollar amount per link didn't make sense if we built a DR30 link and we measure our like price based on DR. But if we have a DR30 link, that should cost less than a DR80 link, obviously. So we started there, and then we just went with our guts and started way too low, to be honest. And then we had to iterate. We had to change our pricing twice to get to where we are these days. It's not an exact science. So the easiest thing you can do is find someone who you admire in the space and copy them. And then from there, you do take your own steps after you have achieved some level of security and knowledge in this space.
Okay, cool. So let's dive into some of the actual tactics which you guys are employing. What is in the do follow arsenal of link building tactics these days?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we do a little bit of everything. We try to get creative based on what the client needs. Honestly, like a lot of clients just want links to like commercial pages. So with that, it leaves us with paid links. Paid links are a good tool. And in a lot of ways, they're not really, I mean, they're a lot of work because you have to do a lot of due diligence with paid links, you know? So we have like a full spreadsheet of factors that we look into when we're analyzing a paid link, you know, anything from traffic sources to traffic trends to what keywords they're ranking for to the health of the backlink profile to, you know, the ratio of links and, you know, even design, you know, we just do like a smell test when we're looking at them. But we do that because we do a lot of that because a lot of clients want links to harder to reach places. And we, for example, we worked with one of the largest API marketplaces on the web, and they only wanted links to like these really specific API documentation pages, stuff that nobody would ever link to, you know? So basically we built like, and they know this, all of our clients know this going to, we built like a 1.5 years worth of like just paid links, you know? We do a lot of HARO. We have a 3, almost 4-person HARO team. Each client gets a dedicated HARO writer based on the niche. So we segment both our core link building team and our HARO team, outreach team, based on niche. So everybody has synergies. Everybody kind of works with the same type of niche. So, you know, somebody who's working with a hosting client isn't going to be working with, you know, a keto diet client, you know. So we do a lot of HARO outreach as well. That's working really well for us.
Do you specifically go for on-topic HARO queries? So if you have a keto client, are you answering keto nutrition type queries, or do you like branch out into working from home or other businessy stuff that is a little bit more general?
Yeah, honestly, I'm trying to get our HARO team to be a bit more open-minded when it comes to that. They go for relevancy first, but a lot of times our clients, they like to have, they're looking, I mean, they're guys like us who are just running sites, you know? So at the end of the day, they just want a link. So sometimes if we're writing as a C-level executive on behalf of a client, then it allows us to kind of branch out into more general business stuff. Sometimes we're writing as, you know, maybe it's like a certain technical position for a team or like a health-related specific person, like a nurse or something like that. That would make a whole lot of sense if we're trying to, you know, answer like general business-related stuff. But if the opportunity allows us, we answer more business, just more general-related stuff. And yeah.
And how effective or how productive is a typical full-time employee at responding to HARO queries? I mean, like how long does it take on average for someone to respond to one?
Sebastian?
Yeah, I think the response time, it really depends on the topic, right? But I would say roughly 15 to 30 minutes for response. But it really depends. If it's a highly complex topic where a lot of research is needed, that obviously takes longer. But in the end, that's why we have specialized writers. So they know what they're talking about. They have a background in that space. And it's not a generalized writer we got off of Fiverr or something, right? So that's something we would never do. And again, that goes back to creating synergy, have specialized people in place, and then also find clients that fit those niches that we can provide. But in the end, 15 to 30 minutes. And as you know, we've built a whole tool to manage HARO for us to speed up the process, right? In the end, our goal is to reduce the time that anyone on our team really needs to execute the task, right? And that's more my side of the business, to look at, okay, how do the processes look like, and where is like the most amount of time lost in something that can be automated or can be optimized. And then I jump in and try to figure out a process on how to improve that. For HARO, it was, okay, A writer needs to go through every email every day and scan it for certain keywords. That doesn't make sense. Let's build a tool where you can just type in a search and it will go through all of the queries and find you the queries that have that keyword in it. Then they need to understand, is it a good site? They need DR, they need traffic. Doesn't make sense for them to go on Ahrefs and look for it. So we pulled it into the tool so they can just have it right there, right next to the query, right? So small things. I think it's a good thinking for everyone out there who's building sites or running an agency. Look at what is costing your people time to execute a task and then optimize around that. And that's a lot what we do. So we're getting faster and faster, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. We're playing with different models, but currently we pay writers either by the query or by the word. So, and they have incentives or they have bonuses if they land live links that we can actually charge our clients for. So they have the incentive to be productive.
How big are the bonus, like relative, if you don't mind me asking?
15% right now. So but we charge premium price for our links, and from HARO, they're usually DR60 to DR80 plus links, So for a writer, they're getting paid by either the query or the word. And then once they land bonuses, a lot of times that's like $120 or so. So it's a good deal for them.
Yeah, and it also incentivizes them to do more because their goal is to earn more money. So they will spend some of their free time learning about the space. They will browse their client's website to understand it better, right? And that's not time necessarily they can charge for, but it will pay off. And I think it's a good incentive system for also if you want to do this for your own sites. Think about what incentivizes your writers to do a really good job. And in our case, that's through giving them a share of what we charge for the link.
I really like that. Actually, I'm a big fan of trying to align incentives correctly so everyone can do their best work. At the moment, I think most of our HARO people are actually paid. Some of them are normal writers who, when they're creating blog content, we pay them per word, obviously. But for whatever reason, when they're doing HARO, we pay them per hour. And I mean, they're not particularly slow. I mean, say like 20 minutes or so is about the average time it takes to respond to one, plus, looking through the list and all that. But I think that's a really good idea. I think I'm going to implement this this bonus structure as a way of, as you said, getting them to really care about getting the results, because that's all that matters at the end of the day, not how many queries they respond to.
It's been pretty amazing to watch. They really because they know they're going to make more money. So it's been pretty amazing to watch, like how, because we, if we find a good article on HARO or a good video or something, we'll send it to them, and they really take ownership over their clients, over the processes, and they learn as much as they can. They take notes. They measure their own metrics, and they do a really good job. And I think that's because of the bonus system that we've implemented. It's a lot easier to do as an agency, because you have your clients essentially paying for those links, and we make less. There's less profit per link, but it's a good incentivizer for the writer.
And just to back up a sec, I mean, you mentioned paid links a little while ago. How are you actually going about identifying prospects for that, and what are you sending to them to start that discussion?
Yeah, I mean, we've done just so much outreach over the years that when we first started out, we didn't do paid links at all. We really didn't start doing it until people started asking us to do it for them. But we would just send out tons and tons of outreach emails that were either skyscraper or some form of link building. And we would get people saying, no, I'm not going to make the edit, but if you give me $100 or something like that, I'll do it. So we've just kind of started aggregating all of those, and we built a database. So that's part of it. We do a lot of outreach based on, so if we're mining for paid links, we'll go to a site that we know sells links, and then we will we'll export all of the outbound links, and then we'll look at all of the backlink profiles of all those outbound links, because we know that they pay for links as well. So if we can find a site that's relevant to our client, we will find a ton of other sites out there that.
I love it. That's such a great idea. Actually, I don't think we've done that before. So
yeah,
awesome.
So if we have, if there's a site in the help niche that pays for links, we'll look at all the outbound links, especially if it's like if it's a site that's getting links to like specific money pages, and we do that as well. We'll look into the SERPs for like what's ranking for certain like money keywords, and we'll look at the backlinks of those pages for our clients, because if it's a best gaming mouse and it has 161 links to it, those are probably all going to be paid, So we have a lot of cool little tricks that we use to find paid link opportunities. And we try to, as much as we can, connect with contributors instead of actual site owners. So if we can find contributors that have like that basically will like insert a link into the writing.
You bribe the writer.
Yeah, so we'll try to bribe the writer over like because a site, if it's the owner of a site, that eventually turns into a business model for them. The site, I think over time might lose some integrity. But if you're just trying to connect with the writer, then you'll still know that site in general will have editorial standards.
Yeah, I think we're trying to stay away from the link farms out there, right? It's like paid links have a pretty bad rap, and it's understandable, but only if you do it like everyone else is doing it, and you just go for all the lists that are out there, and you just buy it like 10 at a discount, and that's not what we're trying to do. We're still trying to keep our quality standards at the same time using paid links.
Yeah.
How do you what do you specifically look to avoid when you're looking to assess quality? Because I know we can talk about like measurable metrics like DR and traffic, but from like a objective quality perspective, how do you say, oh, this is a good site, this is a bad site?
So we look at it needs to have at least 1,000 estimated traffic through Ahrefs per month. We want to make sure that the traffic sources are sources that are from the audiences our clients are trying to target. So if it's a US-based site, we try to make sure that they have links or they have the traffic source from like the US or the UK or maybe Australia. There's a lot of people who can kind of pump up the estimated traffic numbers, trying to target like really weird long tail keywords, like a certain C-listing celebrity's net worth or something like that, or like watch X movie on Putlocker or something like that. And that will kind of pump up the numbers, but we try to make sure that site is actually ranking for keywords that are relevant to like the audience.
And then what are you actually saying when you're outreaching to these people then? Yeah,
I mean, we use all sorts of different scripts, but we try to make it pretty clear that it's like worth their while, that we're looking to pay for a link. If it's that sort of site, not for all the outreach we do, but if it's that sort of site, we try to get their attention. We know that this is, for a lot of people, this is how they make money, or this is one avenue for them to make money.
So how would like someone listening at home, like, okay, get their attention? How do I do that?
Yeah. So we would just say in the email, what would it take to get a link on X site? We're happy to pay for this. Something as simple as that.
So you just come out and say you'll pay for it in the first email.
Yeah, and we're not doing that on behalf of the clients. We're doing it with our own internal email addresses. So it's not a client reaching out, getting somebody's negative attention that way. It's us reaching out with our own internal emails.
Okay.
And that's another thing I would recommend. If you are doing this sort of outreach, just blatantly trying to get paid links, which we do a lot more than that, but that's one thing we do. Then I would try to use some sort of third party email.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting. It's like we're really just dipping our toes into the whole paid links scene on one of our sites at the moment. Something we've really shied away from for quite a long time actually, and it's a lot different to what I expected. I thought it'd be easy to find loads of prospects, but in a way, it's almost more time consuming to find like the good sites that you pay for than it is to find like good sites that you don't have to pay for.
Yep.
And then there's like the whole negotiation thing as well, which is a whole different thing.
Yep.
Speaking of which, how do you guys like get the price down or negotiate? I mean, I've been to talking to sites like DR40 and they come back, oh, $700. It's like, and then a DR80 site offering $25.
Yeah.
It feels like site owners don't really have much of a clue what the sites are worth.
Yeah. So just one other thing I wanted to touch on before I answered that specific question, but you're so right about it being time consuming. And that's why, first of all, we're upfront with our clients that we do paid links. But it's really, they don't want to be involved in that process. So like, these are technically, if they could go to, one of these link brokers that has a big database and you can just go in and like order these order these links that you want. But it's it's so time consuming to have somebody go through and really choose, do their due diligence and choose the best link for you. And that's that's why, our clients they're happy with us doing that on their behalf because it saves them so much time. In terms of the price of paid links, we are transparent with all of our core link builders, our employees, about what we charge our clients, and we try to shoot for about we try to basically anytime they come at us with a price, we'll just try to half it at least each time. So we're trying to shoot for about 50% or so of the price they give us.
And once they come back to you with like a counter offer, where do you go from there? Would you have any good tactics you can share with us for things to say here?
Yeah. So for on the agency side, that's why we like to segment different niches with different people, because if you do bulk orders, you can get a better price. At the end of the day, these people, this is how they make money a lot of times, is selling links. So if you say, if you just, it's like this classic negotiation tactics, like, okay, no, that price actually isn't going to work for me. I think we'll just, we'll pass on this one. I mean, almost always they're going to come back and say, okay, we'll do it for the $100, So, I mean, it's really, they're trying to get as much as they possibly can. That's why you have the DR40s coming back with like $700 or something like that. Because, there are huge agencies out there that $700 is a drop in the water. It doesn't matter to them, to us, price does matter, So we anything that come to us, we try to basically just get it down as low as we possibly can. We try to do bulk orders. We have the team communicate a lot saying, hey, I found this opportunity. Can you guys find any opportunities on this site? Because I'm going to place an order. Maybe if we bulk them together, we'll get a better price.
Yeah, and maybe one thing is when you get an offer for like $700, oftentimes, and that's not a general rule, but that's a site to avoid, because that's someone just wanting to make money with a web assets he or she owns. So be a bit careful about that, right? It's not just that they don't know, but they're trying to monetize as much as possible, and that will attract a lot of people who will just, and they probably sell it to everyone. That could include casino sites and whatnot, right? That's not the neighborhood you want to be in. So be careful about that as well, and do your due diligence. And then maybe one tactic we use, I mean, in the end, our people use us to say, sorry, I cannot do that, right? I say, my boss says, no, this is like a $40 tops, cannot go above that, I'm sorry. And that works quite well, right? So they are not the enemy in the conversation, we are. So, and then they can play around that and be the good guy and trying to find a middle ground somewhere, right? Which is actually true, and it works quite well.
That's actually an interesting idea. I'm just thinking from an authority site perspective. It's quite sort of classic that you outreach as the site owner, and you're ideally yourself if you're the person running the site, but maybe pretending to be like a one level below, like a manager or outreach person. You can then use the boss scenario in there to make the boss the enemy. So and create fake restrictions essentially.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It's not fake in our sense, right? But for a website owner, yes. It's probably also not fake for you because you will not be able to pay more. So use that tactic because it's very effective and people understand it. That's the interesting thing because you're not fighting over something you don't have control over in that sense. So it stops a lot of negotiation and a lot of back and forth, which saves time, which is also money in that sense.
Yeah, and I agree about the willingness to walk away. I mean, all of the classic negotiation tactics you use at when you're in Morocco at the bazaar market trying to haggle over a headscarf or something, like all of that, like walking away, seems to just work with website link negotiation. I think, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I think it's like when, from the site owner's perspective, they can sell basically unlimited amount of links to whoever's coming. So if they say no to you because like the price was too low, they've lost whatever it was you were going to offer, and they're not going to get that back. They can't sell it to someone else because they've just lost you as a client. So I feel like everyone, even if they say they don't negotiate, they really do.
Yeah, we've had people come to us with like $1,000+ for a link and saying, okay, we're not going to budge on this, and then we'll get it down to like $300 or something like that. Like they're always willing to negotiate, and that's what I always try to remind the team is like this is a revenue avenue for them. They're either going to get something, or they're going to get nothing, and it's literally 2 minutes of their time.
Yeah, and maybe another thing is, don't connect the price to the quality, right? That's another thing. Oftentimes, the really good links don't cost that much, but they're just a lot harder to reach because it's like a bigger company and you have to go through multiple people at their media department and they have order forms. It's like really old school sometimes, but the links are amazing and it's not something everyone can get. So finding those opportunities much better than going with a guy who wants $700 for a DR40 link.
Okay. So we talked about sort of classic like paid link outreach stuff. We talked about HARO. What are some of the other tactics which you guys are working on at the moment?
Yeah, we do a lot of resource pages as well. We're doing resource pages for a client right now who just wants, they're sort of in like the job market. Their niche is the job market or career, and they only want, or they want links from like university, like career, for like those career pages for like students who are about to graduate. They need like university, they need like job resources. So one of the things that we did was like my favorite tool in Ahrefs is like that little search bar and the backlink like when you open a backlink profile, there's a little search bar. Because you can do so much with that. So one of the things that we did is we just went through all the biggest competitors of our client, and we just searched .edu in that little search bar, and it gave us only university websites, and like almost all of them are those exact things that the client wanted. They wanted those sort of like career and job resource pages, those evergreen pages on site. So it gives us a list of like 600 of universities who actively reach out to actively link out to third-party sites just like our clients. So another way that we use that is, and this is, this can be used with any niche really, any site owner, is just to find the biggest niche or the biggest site in your niche. So we were building links for it was like a Medicare insurance broker. So we just like typed in medicare.gov, which has like 70,000 referring domains or something like that. And in the backlink profile, we just searched by either the keyword links or the keyword resources. And it gives us a list of like, 2,000 plus resource pages. And it's actually, it's really, if you use the search qualifiers, right, it's really accurate actually. So we build resource page list like that, which work really well for us. We have
what types of sites typically have resource pages then? So it's not something I've come across all that often.
I mean, it's more, sites that have been, it used to be a bigger thing, right? Kind of before there were big search engines, there were sites that, that's kind of how you navigated the web, is you would find a site and they would have a resource page section, and that's how you would find other sites in that niche. But those still exist. Those links pages and resource pages still exist. They exist more, I would say, on kind of larger sites, like the .govs, like the .edus, or like the nonprofits or whatever, but they still exist. Yeah. But yeah, I guess it just depends on the niche. But I mean, I've been able to find, I think they kind of max out, so you can kind of find maybe a list of 1,500 or 2,000 sites, max within a niche, but it doesn't, it seems to kind of max out around there.
And how do you get the link on there? Do they just have like a contact us to get your link on here type page?
Exactly. I mean, almost always they have some sort of email on that page, or like some sort of submission page or something like that, which is still fine. It still goes through an editorial process. It still has to, these aren't like user generated links or anything like that, but those are actually really easy to get in contact with, because they always have some sort of, if you have some site you want to submit to this page, email us here.
Yeah. And do you have to do anything to kind of stand out from everyone else, or are these sites getting bombarded with other SEOs that often, or is it pretty easy?
It depends. We've been trying new avenues of outreach. So I used to do really highly like manual like styles of outreach, and then we went to like fully automated stuff, like just as many emails out as we possibly can, sort of approach. And within the past year or so, we've tried a outreach platform called Respona, and that allows you to personalize at scale your outreach. So that's worked pretty well for us. That actually probably works better. The Respona works better for like the skyscraper style emails, because you can actually pick parts of you can actually quote parts of the article, in your outreach email and stuff like that. But it also allows you to try to write, find the right person and whatnot. But these days we try to, when we're doing outreach, we try to personalize all the emails that are going out, so it's not just like a big template, because those do tend to get ignored.
So you mentioned Respona there, but what other tools do you use for managing all these different types of link building?
Respona is probably the main outreach platform that we used in the past year. We've also used Pitchbox. We don't use Pitchbox anymore. I think we still use
Why not?
Pitchbox, it was a bit clunky for us. So we were also, when we stopped using Pitchbox, we were kind of in the process of, there was a period of time where we were just doing a bunch of like shotgun style skyscraper. We got to a point where that kind of stopped working. And so we had to basically rebuild a lot of our outreach processes. Also, Pitchbox was pretty expensive at the time for what we were getting out of it. So I think you can get the same results from using something like Respona or even like Mailshake.
And are you guys using like Hunter for finding email addresses? Does Respona do that? I've never actually used Respona.
Respona has their own internal email finding system. So they use like LinkedIn and a couple other avenues to find like the right email. You have to do it manually. So you manually go and they'll find the emails for you, but you manually select the one you want to use, which is pretty useful, but it's also time consuming. We still use Hunter. Yep.
Yeah, and Snuff.io or Snovio. I'm not really sure what the exact name is.
How is that these days? I remember testing it like 4 or 5 years ago, and the quality was pretty bad back then. Has it gotten a lot better?
It seems to be better, yeah. So we still use both, but it's almost on par with Hunter these days, at least from our tests. But it's also pretty early, so I don't have a final verdict on it yet.
Awesome. And so tell me about digital PR stuff that you've done. So I know you mentioned you had a few people sort of working on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so that's a newly deployed team for us, and we're still kind of in the early stages of running tests. But Yeah, we've invested in Cision Connect Plus. That's just basically, the largest journalist database out there. You can find journalist beats based on, certain keywords that you're trying to target or certain media outlets. So we use that for outreach. That hasn't produced a ton of results, but we also haven't used it that much. We worked with one of our clients. The election was really relevant to one of our clients with a specific angle. So when the U.S. election happened, we built an outreach piece, or basically like a PR piece, that I guess there was kind of the newsjacking angle in general, just about President Biden being elected, but we also did an original survey. So we surveyed 500 Republicans and 500 Democrats, and we created an infographic and some data visualization with those results.
What tool did you use to do the survey? Was that Google or SurveyMonkey or something?
SurveyMonkey is what we used for that. And then we built a really good piece out of that, and we're doing outreach with that. We've gotten some good results with that. So basically, we did it in the form of a press release, but it was not like your Hoth press releases where you just send something out and it gets aggregated a bunch, or it gets syndicated a bunch between different platforms, for like 6 months or something like that. So we did it. We actually try to connect with journalists. Pitching the piece, but also pitching our advice as experts, or on behalf of our client as experts. And that's another thing that we've been doing recently, and it's sort of like reverse HARO. So if you are reaching out on behalf of a client, you can kind of reach out and say, hey, this and this is going on in this realm. We have an expert here who can talk about it. Do you want to connect with him? And we sort of reach out on behalf of our client. Sometimes our client actually is the one responding to those things. We have a client in the cybersecurity space, and he's actually the one that's responding because he's a legit, expert. But with our other clients, we just started doing it for a couple other clients, and we just have kind of our writers respond on behalf of them doing research.
Yeah, but maybe to quickly jump in here, because that's like the upper end of what we do. But we started news checking very early, actually. And I think even our first client, and that is something everyone out there can do. What we did back then, it was an e-commerce client in the outdoor space. And that was the time of all the wildfires out there. Right? So what we did is we recommended, hey, this is a hot topic right now. Just write us a piece about camping safety, fire safety while being on a hike. And then we reached out. We actually scraped all the news sites out there that were talking about the wildfires, and we pitched to them, hey, this is a big problem. This is how you prevent it. And we got a ton of really, really good links from that. And that didn't cost much, right? It was an article that was done in a day. But the urgency and that it was such a media topic at that point propelled it to be something much bigger than the article alone would have never been a good link target, right?
So how do you come up with those kinds of ideas? Are you looking at what's in the news today, and then you're like, well, what can we get produced, in 24 hours?
Yeah, in the early stages, we would just. Sebastian and I would just come up with ideas. We would just have a rap session, because that's when we were the ones doing all this stuff. So we would say, okay, what's going on in the world for that particular client, camping or outdoors, and that was a hot topic. So we just kind of brainstormed. That's what we came up with. To streamline it a bit more, Reddit's a really good tool. Reddit seems to always kind of be one step ahead of the news, and I think Brian Dean has a tool now called Exploding Topics that shows kind of the growth trends of each topic, and that's another good tool. That's the one we just kind of started playing with.
Yeah, and there are tools for Reddit specifically where you can see exploding topics per se, right? Or exploding subreddits. So you can see the signups per day and over a period of time, and you say, okay, something is going on. Let's take a look. And then if you have clients or if you're in a specific niche, just monitor that for your space, and you will find interesting angles to use.
Okay. So are there any other link building tactics that you want to talk about?
I mean, we do guest posts, resource pages, organic outreach, so the usual stuff. I think, again, our goal is to be relevant and organic. So we have a lot of tactics, but I would say guest posts and so on is something you talk quite a lot about. But we can go into it. If you want.
Let's talk about guest posting then. So when it comes to guest posting, how do you differentiate between guest posting for guest posting versus paid links outreach in the sort of vein of guest posting? Because isn't there quite a big overlap between the two?
Yeah, I would say that guest posting for us is kind of like a secondary tactic. Guest posts are like really resource intensive. And so, if we're doing outreach for somebody and they say, we're not going to insert the link there, but if you want to write an original guest post, we can do that. So really it's kind of something that it's, when we've exhausted other avenues, because, I still have like PTSD from running like a guest posting service back in the day, because it was like so resource intensive to have to have them agree to a topic and then have the topic, have a writer write it up, and then actually have them post it, and then you have to make sure that they didn't take the link out, and no follow the link or stuff like that. It was really exhausting. So these days, if we do guest posts, it's usually because we've exhausted other avenues, and that's kind of like, we're not going to do that, but if you want to write a post and insert a link, we can, we'll publish it if it's good enough. So that's usually what we'll do. So. It's kind of something we just, if that's, kind of the last resort to get a link, for our clients, then we'll do that. You can mine guest posts pretty well if you use, like your niche, and then one of the qualifiers, write for us or submit an article, whatever it is, and then move the timeline on Google to like within the past week or the past month. And you can get a lot of like people. I mean, these are write for us pages or whatever that have been published or updated within the past month. So you can get a lot of opportunities that other people won't see.
Okay, so basically the idea there is that most people, they just go to Google and they type niche plus write for us, and they find whatever's ranking. So you're not looking for the people who are ranking. You're still using the write for us sort of template structure, but you're finding what's not ranking, and so the idea is that no one else is, or fewer other people are outreaching to these sites.
Fewer other people are outreaching for those sites, because either those write for us pages were just published, or they were just updated recently. So that they're actively looking for guest post writers, and if it was just published, it's probably not ranking.
Awesome. I like that a lot, actually, because a lot of people hate on write for us pages, but I don't think it's necessarily the fact that someone has a write for us page that makes it a potentially bad link. I think there's probably more of them, more of the bad sites do have write for us pages because they're just trying to sell links. But if you have a process like that, or if you really analyze it properly, then you can find some really good ones in there as well.
Yeah, you can do the same thing for resource pages. You can find, if you use the same qualifiers or the vertical with the same parameters, search parameters for resource pages, and then you use like the timeline tool in the Google search to the past month, then you'll get resource pages that are actively being updated, because they added a link and it says, it was updated within the past month or whatever. So that's another way you can try to hit resource pages that maybe other people aren't seeing, but they're actively adding to those pages.
So tell me about your team and your team structure. How do you have different people do each subset of guest posting? Do you have link building? Do you have like a guest posting team, the HARO team, the PR team, and how do those people interact? And how did you decide to do it in that way?
Sebastian?
So at the core is what we call account managers, right? So they are kind of the direct contact to the clients. They know what's going on. And then everyone else is kind of a service to those account managers. So they do the bulk of work. They do all the organic outreach, paid outreach. They decide if they want to have a guest post on the site or not. And then it kind of trickles out to all the other service parts of the company that then provide that service to the account managers. Right? So for HARO, the account manager assigns a HARO writer who is specialized in that topic, and then the HARO writer will go and start pitching and then supply the account managers with successful link placements, right? There's not a lot of interaction there, so they can run independently. With the guest post, it's more active. They will request a guest post within our project management tool, and then the writer will just self-assign and write the post, give it back to the account manager, and so on, right? So the core is really account managers, and then everything else is kind of a service to them.
And what type of people do you typically look to hire and when you're hiring link builders? I know it's something many people struggle with, especially if you go out and look for people who have a lot of experience in link building. Often that's the wrong experience. So what's your secret sauce there?
Yeah, I think that's the interesting thing. We hire specifically for no experience necessarily. We focus on mindset over skill. And I think that's also what makes our culture special, because we look for people who have a certain mindset and certain qualities. We like growth mindset, intellectual humility, someone who is very reflective and open and willing to admit mistakes, right? So more softer qualities. And then we teach them. So we have an internal training program. We have a buddy system where someone new will get a buddy assigned to them, and they bounce ideas and do the educational process and the training process together. So yeah, I think that makes us maybe different from everyone else, because link builders, they are trained to they think in a certain way. And if that's not aligned with how we do it, that's much harder to untrain than it is to train someone who really fits our culture. And then we just tell them, hey, this is what you need to do, and this is how we approach it. And I think that makes a much more robust team long-term, that also, that really is a team and not just a bunch of link builders. I think that's what makes it different.
And it's so important these days to learn and constantly be learning to stay ahead of the curve with what other people are doing in link building. I imagine at the scale you guys are at the quality level you guys are at, you're always trying to stay ahead of the curve. And aside from the great resources on Authority Hacker, of course, where do you guys go to learn this stuff?
Honestly, a lot of it comes from me mad scientisting, in my little cave. A lot of the stuff that we come up with, even for doing outreach for new clients or doing outreach to find paid links that other people might not see. It's really just me tinkering around with Ahrefs and finding new stuff, because maybe there's inspiration that I might take from different things that I see. But it's really just about diving into, backlink profiles of sites that you want to replicate and seeing what kind of trends you see.
And how do you get into mad scientist mode? Is it usually when you have a client who you haven't got enough links for and you're trying to figure out how to do that? Or what drives that creative process? Yeah,
I think it's for, hopefully we're never in the position where we have a client where we're not building enough links for. Usually by the time we take them on, we realize that, or we know that we can have success with them. A lot of the time is when they want something specific, or something just comes we had a client in the keto space, and they wanted links on university pages. So I was trying to figure out how I could do this at scale. So I thought of university discount pages. So it's for students who need or who want a discount to a certain, or who get a discount to a certain product. So I found a couple of them, and then I found kind of the same people were being listed on those. So I would analyze their backlink profiles and see that they were actually being listed on it's berries.com, being listed on hundreds of these pages. It's really just about trying to, that's why we try to communicate with the client openly about what they need, because if they're wanting a certain thing, if they want us to take a certain angle, then I will look into that and try to figure out, what the best, most effective ways to accomplish whatever they're trying to accomplish. So I look at their competitors, I find the trends, and then I try to create something, or I create like a really rough view of what it can look like, and Sebastian turns into a process.
So tell me a little bit about your turning things into a process, Sebastian. How do you decide, we need to automate this? And how do you actually go about automating part of your link building?
Yeah, I think the first version is really just a rough draft, right? And things will break, and that's fine in the beginning. There is no set process how to turn something into a working process. You have an idea, you try to get a good enough first draft into place, and then you see what breaks and what takes forever. And from there, then I go in and see, okay, example, we have a client and we have to build links for them, but they already have links. How do we make sure that we don't build the same link from the same domain again? Would require, I go to Ahrefs, I'll go to their backlink profile, type in and do that search over and over and over again. Doesn't make sense. All right, that is a problem. What can I do? I connected the Ahrefs API to our project management system, and whenever someone types, so our guys plan out a month where they want to reach out, so they type in all the sites they want to reach out to. Whenever someone types in a new site, it automatically checks with Ahrefs, does that link already exist for that client? Yes, give them a thumbs down. If not, give them a thumbs up. And whenever they change something, that gets updated. So they can always make sure they're good to go, right?
So did you physically code that, or
Yeah.
how did you build that?
Yeah, and maybe it's an interesting space for everyone who's a bit more techy. The whole no-code space, Zapier, or other more complex tools like Integromat, Parabola, they all, you can glue systems together and achieve an insane amount of functionality and automation without any coding skills. I'm not a developer. I don't know how to code. I understand tech to some extent. But with those tools, you can really automate a lot of those repetitive tasks if you understand APIs a little bit, but that's like a weekend investment to learn about that. So I really encourage you to look into that space, because that's, I think, a bit of our superpower. It creates leverage that gets you ahead.
That's really interesting, actually. So I didn't realize like you had no coding experience like that. So that's awesome. What project management system are you using for this?
We run everything on Airtable. That's kind of our core. So our project management to plan each month is in there. All our success metrics are in there. The reporting for the clients is in there, right? So everything is there, and everyone has just a different view on the data.
Interesting. And then when someone enters a URL and like a client, I don't know, whatever in the database there, what is actually happening? How is what you've built checking that against the Ahrefs? Can you walk us through the automation?
So the easiest way to do this is with Zapier, for instance. That's probably the most common.
I think most people would know that.
Yeah. And what you can do in Zapier, it actually offers you that step. It's like listen to a row in Airtable in a specific view. If it changes, do something with it, right? That's the first step. And then you decide, what do I want to do with that? The next step would be, okay, I want to check with Ahrefs if that link exists. That's where it gets a bit more techy, because Zapier doesn't have a native integration with Ahrefs. But you can look at the API documentation if you understand it a bit. It's really just a link that you copy, and it will give you call the server, and it will give you a result back and say, yeah, there's a link, or no, there's no link. Literally that, right? And then you use that result to do something else. So, okay, if a link is there, update the same row in Airtable with a thumbs down. If the link is not there, update the same row in Airtable with a thumbs up. It is, in a sense, very easy. It just is very intimidating in the first step, because you have to understand APIs, and it's a bit of process-driven thinking that I think intimidates people. But once you get into it, at some point, it's really just playing Lego. You know, okay, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I understand how it works, and you can build a lot with that.
I think that'd be really interesting for a lot of people, and I think it's a lot of this is just about the awareness of, hey, it's actually really easy to do this stuff. For example, knowing that you can set Zapier or whatever tool you're using up to listen to a row in Airtable or Google Sheets or whatever you're using, and then have that trigger some other action. Like, I think a lot of people out there just don't know that that's how it works.
Yeah, and another example is if you do HARO, for instance, and if you record all your HARO pitches, the sites you reached out to, what we do, and that's built into our tool in Ecology.io, but what we do is we check each day, hey, that pitch you sent, did you actually get a link back from that site, right? And that way you can track your success rate with HARO. Not for all sites, anonymous sites, obviously we cannot track, but it makes things easier. It saves a few minutes a day, right? And that's already a win. If you do that multiple times, you save an hour or 2 hours a day, and you've made money without doing much.
And how long will it take you to build that automation that does that?
That specifically, I think, took maybe an hour. It's not a lot of time. But you can go crazy with that, right? It's like there's no limit of what you can do, but you can start out literally like in 10 minutes. Yesterday I built maybe for outreach. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lemlist, the outreach tool. What we do is we want to personalize our outreach more. So what I did is our VA creates a Google Sheet with outreach targets, and that gets automatically synced into Lemlist, going through never bounce to make sure the email is actually valid. If it's valid, it sends it to Lemlist and automatically sets up the campaign, which then creates a highly personalized page with a personal YouTube thumb, because we have a video in there and it looks super personal. It creates a special image, takes their logo, and makes it just like look like we actually sat there and wrote that email. And that's automation and personalization at scale that you can do when you know a little bit about Zapier and these automation tools. And I think that can set you apart and get a higher success rate, especially with outreach.
I think anyone who's doing any kind of serious amount of outreach needs to be thinking about how they're automating their various parts of their process, if not, significant parts of it in some cases. Yeah. So the last question I have for you is about email deliverability. I know this has been a problem for a lot of people over the years, and it seems to me it's somewhat of an SEO style art rather than a science. Do you guys have any insights for how to have good deliverability and how to fix it if your deliverability is kind of gone to shit?
I think it's hard to fix it when it's gone to shit. To be honest, we hired a specialist to advise us on that, especially in the days when we did a lot of shotgun skyscraper and we sent a lot of emails. We don't do that anymore, and that's partly the reason, because it can hurt your deliverability. A thing we do is we space out our outreach across multiple domains, so we don't hit each domain that hard. I think that's just a hygiene thing you should do from the start if you plan to do more outreach. And then it also depends on the type of outreach you're doing, right? If you do skyscraper, you have to be much more aware. So you can set up your campaigns that every campaign sends an email to GlockApps, for instance, which is a tool to measure your deliverability, or mailtester.net, I think. Maybe we can put it in the show notes. So you have to monitor it. Do it early. Don't do it after things like shit hit the fan, to speak French. So be very aware that you have to do this from day one, especially if you send higher volumes. Then do the normal stuff, DKIM and all the protocol set up, and there's certain standards you have to apply, but that's just part of every, like just setting up the email, right? DMARC setup, same thing. So just follow the standards and don't spam people. That's what we do.
Honestly, that's one of the biggest reasons we got away from automating mass amounts of email, is because with machine learning, and Google, they can detect trends, even at really low volumes. So we were just having so much trouble with it, and even after, if you're doing it across a bunch of clients and you're risking burning their sending domains and stuff like that, we just kind of had to rethink our strategy, and then we rebuilt a lot of it, and that's what we're trying to do. We do, use tools like Mailshake and Respona, but we try to personalize as much as possible so the emails look quite a bit different, and we take a much more manual approach these days. Our own sending domain, dofollow.io, when we're sending to actually get sales and prospects, is probably strong enough that it can handle some automation. But especially if it's a brand new site, I would really try to create some diversity within your email pitches, so that it doesn't detect this, it doesn't label it as spam.
Yeah, and Lamlist, for instance, if you want to put in the work, allows you to randomize certain aspects of your script. Right, so you write 5 different versions and it just randomizes whichever it picks. So it creates some kind of difference in the templates you're going to send. It's work you have to put in. My recommendation would be just don't scale that much, because ultimately it's not working, at least in our experience. We started out at scale. That was Shotgun Skyscraper was our first tactic, so to speak. And at that scale, it's no longer working, or it's only working for short-term benefits, right? And then you have to switch domains over and over, but you also have to warm up domains. So you actually cannot send that much. You can make it work, but the hassle of making it work will keep you from focusing on the important things. So it's kind of, you have to choose which battle to fight. And we chose not to fight that one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for coming on today. Dofollow.io is your website. And what type of clients are you looking for, in case anyone's interested?
Yeah, so we are open to most niches. We try to focus more on the tech side of stuff. So, cybersecurity, hosting, anything really within the tech realm, SaaS companies. We do require a $3,000 budget per month, but like Sebastian said earlier, it's performance based, so we only charge for what we build. Yeah.
Awesome. So people just go on your website and reach out to you if you want to get in touch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and check out Ecology.io if you want. And if you go through dofollow.io, say that you came through Authority Hacker, and we'll see if we can make
maybe we'll have them back on if you do.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks very much for coming on today and sharing all these link building tactics. I know I've got a few that I'm eager to try out now.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. And thanks to everyone for tuning in and listening. If you like this interview, if you like hearing more about geeky link building stuff, then let us know. Leave us a comment on the YouTube video, and maybe Eric and Sebastian can answer a few of those comments if people have specific questions about anything we've spoken about. But when Gail and I are looking at what topics and what kind of guests to bring on next, we look at user engagement metrics. So if you give us a like, thumb it up, subscribe, give us a rating on whatever podcast platform you're tuning in on, then maybe we'll produce more of the types of content which you like. But for now, I will sign off, and we'll see you next Monday for another episode. Goodbye.